Sports Radio 1340 AM, Hopewell, Virginia, and Fox Sports Radio 96.9 FM, The Last Dance Review Show. I am your host, Mike Knox, here with Fox Sports. I'm also joined by no other than Champ Creed. What's going on, Champ?
First time we joined like the mega powers. Hold on, we got to do the slow. Bring
it in, brother. Bring it in.
My man Mike.
What's going on with you, man? This was a great idea brought to me by you, of course. Something I've been salivating and wanting to do a show with you. Quiet not, telling my wife, I said, babe, I've been wanting to do a show with any kind of show with Champ for about 5-6 years now. So
it's been a minute.
This was actually perfect. A New York guy brought to Chicago, a Chicago guy. Who left the city at some point, but we're both here now. Like you said, like the mega powers joined on Fox Sports. You can follow Fox Sports Radio at 1340 AM, Fox Sports Radio on Twitter, on Instagram, wherever social media is sold, as well as my namesake. I am loud, I speak loud, and trust me, during this conversation today, you will hear why I am Mike Knox with 3 X's, and Champ Creed is right there as well, spelled like it sounds, Champ and Creed, not Baby Creed. Hey, don't call me Baby Creed. Right? Don't call me Baby Creed. But we have joined together because this documentary, Champ, that has come out, The Last Dance, and let's just be honest here, it's the talk of not just the town, but the country, Champ.
Yeah, and listen, Mario Cuomo, excuse me. I keep getting him mixed up with his dad because his dad was the governor when the Bulls were running the show back in New York. But Andrew Cuomo, the governor, just did a press conference addressing, the citizens of New York, and he brought up The Last Dance as an example. He brought up Michael Jordan and his tenacity as an example. So as we're dealing with this pandemic era, this documentary is weaving its way through the fabric of society in all sectors: sports, business, politics,
right,
history, and do you know? There's a guy on SportsCenter that just showed in the back.
Okay,
I can't remember his name. You know what? Look, there are no rules here, so we're just gonna hit the rewind button. Okay, and see, because I can't remember his name. I remember everybody from SportsCenter except for this dude right here. Hold on, that's Jerry Reinsdorf, right? My man right here. What was his name?
Don't get me to lie. That white guy that was on all the time. That's what I remember.
Yes. Yeah, I remember after Craig Kilborn left, he was kind of like my favorite guy. Then Kenny Mayne.
Okay, I was a big Mayne guy. I'm a big Kenny Mayne guy myself. But as always, Boomer's my specialty, and of course, may he rest in peace, Stuart Scott. Always my all-time favorites there. But continue, because this is not. You're saying the pandemic's going on. Also, guys, hashtag stay safe at home. Be safe at home. Practice. Just clean yourselves. Okay, it's that simple.
That's how you cough.
That's how you cough. My son calls it a dab cough, a vampire cough, whatever it is. Just cover yourself, right? But it's giving us a chance to step away and discuss. In my opinion, okay, and the majority of the opinions out there, the greatest basketball player that ever lived, Michael Jordan. And it's chronicalizing him through the last year that he had in Chicago. Not, it's going to go back. It's touching on how they got to this point, but it's going to be wrapped up and concluded by that final year, this last dance, and what made this last dance so important. And a lot of things is being thrown out there, Champ. Who's to blame? Who's not to blame? Who was ready? Who was mentally ready? And just having you dive into the psyche, the willpower, the desire. When you got guys like Bobby Knight in college, calling him the greatest he's ever seen. Your thoughts on what you saw in part 1 and 2 before we actually dissect part 1 and part 2.
Okay, so for part 1 and part 2, actually, for those of people that may or may not know, this part 1 and part 2 was extracted from a previous project that the NBA was putting together. It just didn't see the light of day. And some of this footage and the way that it's assembled, I already saw it.
Okay.
Back, when I was see this right here? See this right here, Mike?
I see that.
Boom.
Okay.
That event, right?
Yes, I remember that event. You told me then.
Yes, they had a lot of this footage going around. They just didn't know how they were going to package it, put it together, and present it.
Right.
So a lot of the stuff I saw, the only thing that kind of like stuck out to me was the whole Jerry Krause
okay.
enmity that was going on. But parts 1 and part 2, it kind of wet the palate. For those that didn't know, they do know. For those that did know, it gave you more insight.
Right.
And I think it's a perfect setup for the future episodes to come. So I liked it. So far, so good.
Not only did I like it, I'll be lying to say the word like. I loved it. And just like you as well, champ, there was very few footages or very few things or discoveries that I was able to actually find in this that I didn't already know. You know what I mean? We're going to dive into some things that we did not know. But overall, being from Chicago, wanting to be like Mike, I always say everybody wanted to be like Mike. I'm not going to go this far and say I didn't want to be like Mike. I did. You know what I mean? I want to be more like my Uncle Johnny, though, because to me, he was the closest to Jordan that I knew. My Uncle Johnny was the closest I knew on the courts. They know him, okay, in Inglewood. My uncle was a baller, okay?
Okay, so what is this? Is this Johnny Kilroy that you're talking about?
No. My Uncle
Johnny Kilroy?
No, Johnny Tyler, Johnny Birdsong, Paul Robeson, baby, Paul Robeson. No Kilroy, no Kilroy. But to me, Mike, and what makes Mike great, right? I can tell people it can be an era thing. It's a generational thing. But for us, it's a what was determined to be the top male, the alpha dog. Everybody says they're an alpha dog. Today's big thing is, oh, I'm a god. I hate that. No, there's only one God, and I'm quite sure he doesn't just like this. Okay, and if he did, hey, that's okay. But I'm a reflection of him, and so to be a reflection of somebody, I want to imitate his attitude, and to imitate Jordan's attitude is what we thought the ultimate man was, champ.
You're right. Listen, I'll say this now. Growing up as a Knick fan, right? You can't say you didn't like Michael Jordan. You can't say you actually hated him, because you respected what he did, and you knew that he was the pinnacle of individual success in the NBA, you know, once Magic left, once Bird retired. And I'll even bring it back, because this was in the early 90s when I started loving the Knicks. But before then,
Knicks fan.
I had God
You're
brother,
a Knicks fan who was watching, because I thought Knicks fans was watching.
Yeah. No. You had to pay attention.
That's a shot. That's a shot.
I got you. Listen, I'll tell you this. Here's what put Michael Jordan on the radar for me. In the late 80s, it wasn't so much the 60-plus point game he had against the Celtics, because, I knew about it, I heard about it, but I wasn't really into basketball then. I was actually playing baseball. But I remember watching him play a game against the Milwaukee Bucks, and he just went off. This was in the old Madhouse on Madison. I'm like, wow, this guy's, phenomenal. I'm not a basketball fan per se, but just watching this guy was like poetry in motion, and then you have your uncles and, your godbrothers and those older, and tell you like how great he is. And they also used to watch the footage on VHS of him in college. And then now here's where Sports Illustrated comes into play.
Right.
You start seeing you start seeing him on the covers and in the magazines. So now you're being bombarded from multiple angles about this individual, from seeing the highlights on television to seeing him in magazines, seeing clips and pictures on him in the back of newspapers. I'm like 8 or 9 now, mind you. My mom and my dad were Pistons fans, so they hated Michael Jordan, and they relished in the fact that they always beat the Bulls. But we're going to talk about that Pistons Chicago dynamic soon. But overall, that's how Mike came to, my understanding and my recognition.
Right.
And then once I became a teenager in the 90s, we just really, he really disappointed me on many things.
In wrestling terms, Jordan had the ultimate push from the media, from the nation. And back then, champ, we didn't have, and we know this, we didn't have social media. So a push from the country was what you knew. You know what I mean? Like I always tell people when they come to my sports fandom, is that I grew up in an era where you didn't have the option to like different players in different cities as much as you do today. You were a fan, and you're supposed to be a fan of where you are from. And that was the majority. Not everybody, but the majority, you were a sports fan from where you were. So I always tell people I had the blessings. I have the wonderful love to be born in Chicago, raised in Philadelphia and Chicago. It was the best of both worlds for me. I got to see the East Coast and the Midwest, and so I was in both areas. I seen the Barkleys and the Dr. J's play, and I seen Jordan play. I saw Barkley as a Sixer play. So and seeing Chicago in Chicago Stadium and so forth. Just Chicago was just bombarded with it. You think Ronald Reagan flooded America with crack? No. Michael Jordan flooded the cities of Chicago with Jordan. You had to be like Mike. And I love this documentary. And let's get into part one here, champ, and talk about what you saw from part one. You got a lot of blame for the dynasty falling apart, champ. And that's where I watched it, and we talked off air briefly, and I said to you, I never blamed him because, like Jamil Hill's tweet.
Wait, you're talking about Jerry Krause?
Jerry Krause, thank you.
Okay.
Like Jamil Hill's tweet about he sounds like an owner of an NFL team I know, and she was talking about Jerry Jones. And I'm sitting here saying, you have Jerry Reinsdorf throughout this entire documentary sitting there as if he didn't actually have full power and the true autonomy. So unless this guy, speaking about Jerry Krause, knew something like the Marvin Lewis situation in the Bengals, how he stayed in Cincinnati for so long, how could you let this happen?
Yeah, I mean, listen, you can only, as the general manager, you can only go as far as the owner will allow you to go. And obviously here, Jerry Reinsdorf took a hands-off approach. Like he didn't want to deal with the shits, basically. And the thing about it is, now we knew and we heard about like everything that was going on in terms of the turmoil, but we didn't know that Pippen was cutting ass on him, that Mike was snapping on him, that it got to the point where Phil had to step in. It was almost
bullying.
Yeah, Phil had to step in and say, listen, you got to cut it out. And I'm not going to even use the term bullying. I'm not going to use that term. Because in this situation, the way the organizational structure was that Jerry Krause was the authority figure. You cannot bully an authority figure.
Point.
The authority figure can bully you.
Point.
And it doesn't have to be physically or verbally. It can be contractually.
Yes.
In
the courts.
Yes, in the courts. Yeah. And, that's what it seemed like was happening, but we weren't sure. Now, after watching this part, I'll have to say this. I do think that Mike was right in a sense, whereas, look, we won 6, we won 5, we won 4. Let us have the right to lose. Give us the right to go out on our shield and lose it and then break us up. Because here's the thing. The very next season was the lockout season. So you could have had, if let's say, rewind it. If you would have gave these guys something that they would have been appreciative of or something that was halfway there or middle ground, you would have had the returning champions come back with more rest. And at that age, they needed that much rest. Would they play like 50 games that season?
Yes.
Well, about 50 games. Like a 55-game season. So you would have had a well-rested Pippen, Jordan, Kukoc. You would have brought the same team back, give or take a piece or two, and they would have had they've already had the chemistry. But the thing is, if you would have brought them back, then the Knicks probably wouldn't have made the finals that year. Well, you know what I'm saying? So I'm happy that it happened.
Y'all lost in the finals like you'd have lost if Mike was there. So let's keep the Knick talk right there right now, okay? Just know that he been whooping Patrick Ewing's ass, which is in your background right now since college, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't argue that.
So, but not just that there, it has to be the owner, okay? Because you control it all. And I take a page from another sports guy. Greatest owner in professional sports history is George Steinbrenner. He knew how to make that investment because you're on a professional team. You have other investments. This is a toy to you, okay? Whatever it is to you. But it's another investment.
It's a hobby.
It's a hobby. So but you're making money. How do you make money? WGN got so big that it went from being a local affiliate of Chicago to going nationwide in every household across America until recently. And I'm talking about the last 7-8 years where it split from WGN America to WGN.
Yeah, listen, we had Chet Walker on our TV in New York. I didn't know the history of WGN. And Reinsdorf owned WGN?
That much I'm not sure of. I don't believe so. I wouldn't be surprised.
But wait, so how did WGN go national like that? So was it due to like?
I'm thinking just popularity of
Popularity. It have to be.
Of the channel got so big. I mean, how else you gonna watch Jordan? Because we know back then the games weren't on TV as much as they are now. They were
the TV
locally.
deals were way
they were locally, and and where they were then. How else you gonna watch Mike play if it ain't on NBC? If it ain't on TNT twice a week, as opposed to now 5 times a week, 4 times a week they're seen on TV. You'll be once a week if you saw it back then, and everybody didn't have cable back then. Also, there's a lot of different homes that you got into because of Jordan. You let those guys go out on these shields. I don't blame Jerry Krause, okay? I just don't. I know we can. I know the documentary is telling us that we should. And yes, a lot of blame still goes to him for having what apparently seems to be an ego to want and to do it himself. Right? But I agree with Mike. You let Mike go out on his shield. You let the Bulls go out on his shield. You pay these guys. You beat George Steinbrenner and let that money recoup in itself. It's the line. If you're good, anybody can go play for the Yankees. Okay? But if you're playing for the Yankees for a long period of time, that means you're great enough to play for the Yankees, so they're going to keep paying you. That's how George Steinbrenner stayed in business. That's how Jerry Reinsdorf should have ran the Chicago Bulls organization. And that's the true demise of this team, which I think is being missed in this documentary on The Last Dance, champ.
Well, I can't argue that point with you, man. You're right.
So moving on from that, you have the discussion that seems to be that's out there. And I want to throw this in there because this has come. It's there now. That this has been a well-orchestrated plan by Michael Jordan to purposely come out at this time because it's at the peak of King James's career and the grumblings of him surpassing Michael Jordan. Here's what I say to that. Mama, please forgive me. Kids, earmuffs. Bullshit. Now, let's just be honest at the same token. If he have done it, would it still not surprise me? And my answer would be no. And so what? To be the dog, you have to continue to let people know you can still bite them. Okay? And if that is the case, then so be it. But I just think that's a coincidence that I don't want to even get into. I don't want to discuss any longer, at least during this documentary, the comparison between the two. Because they both are great. I like everything. I believe who's the overnight guy now on ESPN? Chris Baldy. Help me out.
The dude with the glasses.
Yeah.
Come on late night.
Yeah.
Scott
Pelt.
Scott Pelt.
Right. He said it's an era thing. It's a generational thing. It's a look at the league. It's so many variables that you can put in place to make it how you want that we'll never know. It's just always going to be a matter of opinion. So let that opinion be after this. Let's enjoy what we're here. Let my children get involved and know who he really is. Let the younger people, let my wife get to see Scott Van Pelt. Thank you. Let these guys see how great this team was. And another thing I'm glad this documentary is showing. I hate the thought of always saying, champ, Mike had a team. Because I want somebody to tell me what great team did Michael Jordan ever have besides having, I will say the 98 team was somewhat stacked, but we saw, and we're going to talk about that right now.
We have to, because I don't know where you're coming from.
The 63 in Boston. His second best player was Charles Oakley.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So then when you got rid of him in the years where we're going to get into in part 3 and part 4, okay, where they go against the Pistons and all them, they still didn't have a great team. Michael Jeffrey Jordan, his airness, has never had a super team. What he has had is the greatest number 2 of all time in Scottie Pippen. And I love the fact that Jordan said, do not mention my name in greatness and don't mention Scottie Pippen. That was the ultimate cheers to you, my brother.
All right, so 2 things. One, I got to go back to your point about the reason for this, and then we'll go on Mike's team. So, 1, the reason for this documentary to be released now and this year, I don't think it has anything to do with LeBron. Mm-hmm. I think it actually has to do with Teddy Riley. Listen to me. Okay. Here's my point, right?
Teddy Riley.
So, this past weekend, we were supposed to see Teddy Riley versus Babyface.
Yes, we were.
Teddy Riley, he went for a full stage performance with the lights, with the cameras, with the double, triple microphones, the hype man, the keyboard, the voice box. He went for everything when he could have just downsized it and recorded it in his studio. Like Babyface was there just chilling with his guitar like, hey, I'm being socially distant, baby.
Yeah, right.
Teddy, are you there, Teddy? So now, here how it comes. So Teddy Riley messed up Saturday night.
Yes.
And what came out of it? Ridicule, memes, jokes, slanders. Yeah. This man spent 20 years building up his career, defining a generation with his sound. And in one night, became the butt of everyone's jokes on social media.
I hate, by the way.
And I court, but that's the generation we live in.
That's what we are, right?
I'll bring it back to that man on the screen right there. He spent his entire career seeking to define himself
as being great,
as the greatest basketball player that ever lived. And all it took was for him to go to his Hall of Fame speech.
That's all it takes.
And start crying to become something else that people remember outside of everything else he's doing on this documentary. And we can't control it. There's nothing we can do. It's once it gets to social media.
How pissed off that makes me every time I see a crying Jordan meme, yo.
Exactly.
I get so infuriated.
Because I promise you this. Your kids, if you don't teach your kids about Michael Jordan and what he did,
they're learning.
Yeah, they're going to look at him as the crying Jordan face, and that's all they'll know him as. So me understanding that Mike understands this, as he alluded to in his speech about Kobe. He said, I just finally got over being now I'm crying again.
Yes.
He recognized it and said, okay, y'all must have forgot like Roy Jones. So let me let the NBA put this back out just to remind y'all I'm more than a crying face spread around Twitter. Teddy Riley. And by the way, Teddy Riley, he redeemed himself last night up until song 18 to where I feel some funny business went on. Babyface was cooking him, and Teddy was like, oh, my computer's down. Hold on.
Is that really what you gonna sit here and say now?
And then he came back with the keyboard, with the voice bite, like he needed to go get set up for his last two songs. Teddy ain't slick, man. Teddy did some heel shit last night, bro.
You go ahead, man. You gonna leave them? Just bringing it back to that. Listen, you there?
I'm here.
Okay. I had a little sound, bro. My apologies. So we're looking right now into these years where he didn't have these teams, and I think one of the things that came out that I saw on Twitter, my friend Jonathan Brown mentioned. He said only Jordan can be swept and be still just, looked at as still the greatest of all time. Because today, if these guys would get swept, that's going to be held against them. Why do you think that's something that fans look at and go, we didn't care? Because my answer for that was that he didn't have a team back then. Yeah. And the NBA is different back then than it was, let's say, I'm not going to mention those names, but other guys who have taken lesser teams and not be swept.
Well, I mean, I look at it like this, man. Now, how many NBA teams we got? 32? 30? How many? 32 teams. Back then, what they had, like 24 teams, 25 teams. The talent pool, I mean, it's before expansion. Mm-hmm. Think about this. When the NBA expanded, they had Charlotte, Miami, Minnesota, and Orlando, right?
Yeah.
No, I'm talking about even before Toronto and Vancouver, which is now Memphis. Think about the first expansion. You had Charlotte, who Miami. Ended up having let's say they had Larry Johnson, Kendall Gill, and Alonzo Mourning, right? Mm-hmm. You take those three players and you put Alonzo Mourning on the Utah Jazz, you put Larry Johnson on the Phoenix Suns, and you put Kendall Gill on the Knicks. And then who was that after Miami Heat? They had Ronnie Cycli, Steve Smith, and Glenn Rice. Let's say you put Glenn Rice on the Rockets, you put Steve Smith in Detroit, and you put Ronnie Cycli on the Bulls, right? The league, the talent pool, now you can be within the top 400 players in college, or one of the top 400 players. League got 400 players, right? Back then, they only had like maybe 250 players, right? of course, the teams are going to be better because there were fewer roster slots, which means the better talent is going to be there. And no team symbolizes the depth of talent at that time than the Boston Celtics. So if Mike got swept by that team with 3 top 50 players, you really can't hold it against them when it was just him, which will bring us ultimately to my point with Isaiah Thomas, but I'm going to hold that for episodes 3 and 4, right?
I have nothing bad to say about Zeke. Met him at one of my favorite events at Fight Night DC, Fight for the Children. They had their last final round last year. And you know me, champ. I met him, and literally the first thing out of my mouth was, yo, pleasure to meet you from Chicago, South Side. Yo, we hated you. And he just grinned and laughed. That's just who I am as a person. It's no disrespect. I've always thought you meet these guys. I meet a lot of former athletes. You meet those guys too, and athletes currently. We're cool with them because I'm not a fan to them. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a fan, but I'm like, you're still just a dude who that knows the other guy who knows that dude. You know what I mean? Who's not trying to be a dude. And I just had to tell him, like, yo, but man, them Piston teams, and we'll talk about that, they wasn't ready for them. But that Celtics team, right? Like, you still haven't gotten there for me. How can he beat them? How can he get swept by them Hall of Famers and still be considered the GOAT?
But because that team was so great, that's why. Like, that was a great team at a time where the roster spots were filled. Like, listen, put it to you like this, yo. Today's 6-man in an NBA, outside of Lou Williams,
right?
You know what I mean? They probably wouldn't be able to compete. Wow. You know what I'm saying? Because the roster spots were so like a guy like every team now has about 12 active players, 3 on injured reserve, right? On 32 teams.
15, yeah.
Back then, 15. Back then, you only had a handful of teams and a handful of roster spots. You know what I mean? And then on top of that, a lot of things people don't think about. Think about like the training back then. Think about like the medical staffing. They didn't have the best of what you had now.
No, not at all.
You know what I mean? So they had to be like, I tell people this all the time. Your man Wilt Chamberlain did everything he was doing in a pair of low-cut Chuck Taylors, bro. Like, you know, that's like basically playing basketball barefoot now. Right. You know what I mean? With no sports medicine team, you know, with no private trainer doing all this, that, and the third. So back then, that Celtics team was so great that you can't hold it against him. You know what I mean? It would be different now because of the way the league structure is and the media sphere. Right. But back then, you know, you can't knock a man for losing to 3 of the top 50 greatest players of all time. Well, and they had a deep bench.
Yeah, you know, but I still looked at that team and I saw them lose, and being there at that time, and when they finally did, you know, push the envelope, when Mike finally broke through, they finally were making the right moves. They finally got Collins' numbers getting out of there. You know, the Collins came in and he left shortly after. And I love, because they talk about, you know, anything to diminish this guy. Jordan Lee.
Hold on, wait, time out. They really didn't talk about Doug Collins on here too much.
They haven't got there yet. That would be, I'm thinking part 3 and part 4, because where they left us off at was at the Boston loss.
How do you feel about the format? Like how they start in the last year and then they go back to the past, then they go back to the future, then they go back to the past.
That, if I had to take any knock on this documentary, it would be that. It would be that. It's just the way that I think stories should be told should just be straight, you know, through. And if you want to have a flashback, then go back. But they go back and forth. And I get the story they're telling me. I could see it. It's still being narrated. You know what I mean? It's not rocket science to follow. It's just, I don't like the flashbacks and then like to go back to the college. Stay at college. Then come from college. You know what I mean? And do that because it can maybe confuse a lesser audience in a sense. So, and that's what have us even doing this in the review, going back and forth, because they're jumping back and forth. And so we're getting those pieces in, you know, of what should be set up. And I know one of the things that was being talked about was Pippen not being paid.
Yes.
Pippen not being paid and taking the contract, and Pippen admitting that he had to take the contract because, you know, your job is to get paid in the NBA. He took a contract. And that's, to me, he felt in the hopes of, all right, I'm going to do you this solid. When it's time to pay me, you'll do me that solid. And so for the general manager to say, you know, I'm not paying you, and you hear them saying this, I'm thinking they're past their prime. I'm thinking their best years are behind them. Damn. You know,
and that's why I said he wasn't bullied. He wasn't bullying him. He was frustrated because ultimately the pen and the paper is where the power lies.
Mm-hmm. And you look at Jordan's contract over those years from 88 until they won those 7 years. They still had 8 years, right? Jordan won 4 titles, 4 MVPs, 3 regular season MVPs, 6 scoring titles, all defensive team 4 of those years. And Jordan's contract was like,
he wasn't the highest paid.
$25 million for 8 years.
He didn't get paid what he was worth until it was on the back end.
Right. Those last 3 years, he averaged 30 million a season.
30 million.
30 million a season. Okay. Which he deserves. So we talk about the pay cuts. Pippen wasn't the only one not getting paid. So when people were saying, and I didn't like this part of the documentary, it was like, people say, well, oh, Jordan's being selfish because he's talking about how Pippen was being selfish and he couldn't win without Pippen. No, Jordan was playing smart. No, I can't win without Pippen. At the same time, come on, bro. Let's get this money. You know what I mean? But and this is one thing we learned about today in sports. You cannot be mad at a teammate for holding out.
No, you can't. You can't.
That's their money. That has nothing to do with you. If I'm not disrespecting the team on the court, if I'm exercising, I'm not out in the clubs, I'm not smoking, I'm not drinking, I'm here for the team. But my money in is my money in, champ.
Yeah, and look, and here's the thing. Scotty had extenuating circumstances. He had 2 family members that needed excess medical care, which is very expensive. You know, he had like 9 siblings. He had his mom to take care of as well. Scotty was footing the bill for his whole family. As you see, he grew up in meager conditions.
Right.
And not on top of that, he was also going through, you know, and I mean, I'm only going to say this because it was in the press and the media.
Right.
He was having, you know, marital issues as well.
Mm-hmm. With his first wife.
So, yeah, so there was a lot going on in Scotty's personal life that made him want to take, and he had a very good point. He said, what happens if I get hurt? Which could have been, you know, a scenario.
Right.
We've seen that happen. Think about Isaiah Thomas. I'm talking about Isaiah Thomas from now.
Right.
How
he
was on his way to big money.
And he got hurt.
Now he's making money. Never again. Same thing with Boogie Cousins.
Yeah.
Which I think he should have took that money from the Pelicans, but that's just me.
Yeah.
He didn't take that money, got hurt. Now he's only going to get a fraction of that, you know, if that, you know. Well, so Scotty was right. Now, in terms of him waiting to get the surgery and using the surgery situation as leverage, I don't agree with that per se because the longer you delay your surgery,
the longer your comeback time is.
The longer your comeback time, and then he's walking around. When you're walking around on something that's broke, or you're playing on something that's broke, you can make it even irreparable. So I don't agree with him using the surgery as leverage, but I do understand him saying, you know what, I need to do something to get leverage to try to make myself some more money.
But overall spectrum of this documentary, right? And looking at this picture, looking at what we got to see, watching them putting, as he drops the 63 on Boston with the I'm bad mix. But
perfect. The music is perfect for this. The music is perfect.
That was, you sitting there watching that, John. Like, I got my kids. I'm in my game room where we are now. But kids, I got them. Yo, I'm not lying. My kids had to, I thought you're going to take some notes.
You marked out? Did you mark out when you heard it?
Listen, we are loved parents of homeschooling. So this is a project in my house. Now, you're going to learn Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls from your father, who's from Chicago. To why you have all this bull stuff in my house. Yep. Okay, so when that came, I'm like, oh man, you couldn't have put a better score to a documentary than that right there. Watching that, champ, and Twitter ate it up. Twitter, social media ate it up.
Hey, you know, that's what Big E got it from, right?
Yeah,
L at the beginning.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, Big E. For a second, I'm thinking, what rapper named Big E? Because you know, Cartouche just dropped a rap album.
Oh, yo, you know what? Listen.
It's not half bad. Not the album. Every song I heard.
No.
Where he's in some fire stuff was nuts.
No, listen, that's the homie, bro. We're going to talk about that off. I'm going to try to get him on the show. Matter of fact, I'm going to get him on the show. We'll talk about that.
So this whole thing, I'm watching it and I'm just like, like I said, nothing I didn't learn. I didn't know, and people question it, you know what I mean? Oh, he walked into the room, they were all on crack. You know what I'm saying? They snorting coke. Mike allegedly bounced, but it's a
Mike about that. Listen, Mike about to have some people sleeping on the couch during the pandemic, man.
I said, yo, he just snitched on the whole team. He just snitched on the whole. Everybody in this, they say practically the whole room was there, right?
Yeah,
the whole team
man.
was there.
Might get people in trouble in the pandemic.
But what this is showing the people in part 1 and part 2, Champ, was that we got to see the intensity of Michael Jordan. You got to see how hard they went in practice. And one thing about that I love is that that's what they don't have today in this generational gap, because
practice.
But you're sitting here like football, no more 2-a-days. No more, you know, you got everything's structured. You can't do this, you can't do that. Back then, you hear these guys saying that practice was everything. I remember, and I've never ever gone out and said, hey, I was the greatest basketball player. Okay, but I was fortunate enough to play basketball in the South Side of Chicago in the 90s when basketball in Chicago was running dominant because of King High School. Okay, and I got
that Ronnie Fields.
No, they had King High School had Michael Harmon 6'10". They had Rashad Griffin 6'7" and they had Thompson was 7'2" and Hamilton was 7'4", and it was ridiculous.
Fields went to Farragut.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
With KG.
Yeah, that's after me. That's after me.
And what about wait, hold on. So you was playing around Hoop Dreams time with like Arthur Agee?
Yeah, like right after that. So that was 92, 93. Like, so, but I'm bringing up to say, like, I played hard. Like, I wasn't 6-man, but I was on the squad because when it came to practice, I'm not the fastest, the best shooter, the best jumper, but I would get in your face. I would talk shit while I was in your face. That's how I am still to this day, because of this is what we saw to be great. To be great was to own it in the mind and whatever it is you was doing. Even if, what do you think that fake it till you make it got made up because you couldn't have it for real? So let me at least fake like I got it for real.
Yeah, you're right.
Mike had it for real, and he put that in his team to have it for real. For him to go at them like that in practice, to me, that's how you do it. That's exactly
even James
how
Worthy.
you do
Look,
it.
James Worthy was saying that he went at him in practice.
Talking about you better than me.
James Worthy.
North Carolina. Great. James said, and what did he say? 10 days later, he was better than me.
He was better than me.
He was better than me.
And James Worthy, once again, to my point, another top 50 player on a team with other 2 top 50 players. Right? So we're with Kareem and Magic, yeah, and we're working our way to this Isaiah argument, which do
you put Mike as the GOAT?
I'll tell you by the end of this season. End of this series. Woo. At the end of this series,
you're gonna wait that long? I tell you right now, there ain't nobody better. Okay, and I love the fact that White Jesus Larry Bird is the one that said that Michael Jordan was Jesus in sneakers. That's even better.
God came down.
He said God came down and put him in some Jordans. Okay, just the intensity. It's the will. It's the will. This is that attitude, champ, is what I try to instill in my children. It's the will to never give up, to never say you can't do it. And I can't wait, because part 1 and part 2, it's fluff right now. It's about to get into the nitty gritty, champ, because 1 and 2 this is what happened. This is why the team didn't move forward. So this is where we got the motivation from.
They give you the structure in which Mike was working, so that way you could understand. Now here's what I'm looking forward to seeing. I want to see inside the mind and the psyche. Like now we would call it Mamba mentality, which Kobe derived from Mike. The guy is psychotic with this. Like he's one of those guys that don't sleep. And what a trait of a lot of the greats in sport and in business is they don't sleep. They don't sleep. Floyd Mayweather.
I was about to say the same thing.
Listen,
Floyd
Mayweather, he has people on his payroll and staff that have to tell him when it's time for him to sleep. Because if you don't tell him when it's time to sleep, he won't sleep. He doesn't have that button that says, all right, it's time to turn it off. Mike doesn't have that button that says it's time to turn it off. If you give him a sliver of a reason, a small reason to be motivated, Like Danny Ainge said, he was talking a little bit of trash when they was playing golf. He came out and dropped 60 plus on him.
Yeah.
Like, bro, you can't give anyone like that an inch because the psychosis that they have and their determination combined with his ability, his understanding of the game. And it's funny, when you look at the actual plays, right? Mike just makes everyone look like they're in slow motion. It's like there's nothing that you can do to stop him.
Faster, stronger.
And hold on, and not in some cases not even big. It's like if there's someone bigger, he's faster. If there's someone smaller, he's stronger. If there's someone equal size, he's quicker.
Good way to put it.
Physically, he has an advantage against everyone mano a mano, right? And then just his ability, natural ability to be able to elevate and get creative in the air with certain moves. Like, you know, it's so funny, personal story. When I used to play ball, right? And as we go along, we'll start talking about my ball exploits and everything.
You play ball?
Oh, come on now, bro.
You know I'm messing with you. You know I'm messing with you.
So let me let you in on something real quick. Funny personal story, right? So like I said, I when I played baseball, I mean, I didn't even think about playing basketball. Started watching basketball, moved up, you know, to Manhattan, Upper West Side. My friends are in the GOAT tournament. My friends are playing at Rucker, all this. So I'm like, damn, I got to learn how to play basketball. So the way I learned, you know, you go to the coaches, they teach you the fundamentals. You're dribbling, free throws, shooting, set shot, chest pass, bounce pass, defensive drills, everything. But I sucked. It was horrible, right? I think I started playing basketball in like the 4th grade, like the winter of 4th grade. So what I decided, I was like, damn, I need to watch a highlight reel or something that I can learn how to move like the basketball players.
Right.
So the first thing I watched, I think it was might have been Come Fly With Me. Was that the first Michael Jordan tape?
I think so, yeah. Come Fly.
From NBA Home Video.
Yeah, Home Video,
right?
yeah.
And look, and then speaking of the media, going back to what we were saying, we had Sports Illustrated, we had the highlight reels, and then we had NBA Home Video. So I'm watching Come Fly With Me, and they're showing Michael Jordan do all his moves in slow motion, like showing his creativity, his hang time in the air. So me watching in slow motion, I tried to mimic his maneuvers in slow motion because that's what I thought you were supposed to do. So instead of me doing an air reverse layup like this, I jump in the air, I hold it, and then come slow, and then throw it up. Listen, Mike, it worked for me because it was deceptive. Okay. Like I wouldn't release on time, right? On time, and I had enough hops to pull it off.
Okay,
right?
Okay.
So then, bringing it back to what we see, Mike made everyone else look like they were in slow motion.
Yeah.
Because of his ability and his talent, and I'm really waiting for the next episodes to see how the Pistons figured a way to neutralize.
But see, that's where the triangle became so important to the offense because truth be told, and we saw this triangle run from the Bulls and we seen it go to the Lakers. The Knicks, unfortunately, because it's the Knicks, couldn't run it right. But we saw the Bulls run it to perfection. It's nothing but spacing the floor enough to have your guys go ISO. And who's the ultimate ISO player is Michael Jordan, or one of the ultimate ISO players is Michael Jordan. Is he going to shoot it over your head? He going to blow past you? He going to jump over top of you? How do you stop this? And that's what made it work so good in LA later in other years because you had Kobe that could do the same thing. And you can't, you're going to try to come double team me. There goes Shaq.
Look,
okay.
And you had a versatile player
Wing,
like Scotty.
Yeah.
To be able to
do the same
control the offense, do the same thing.
Yeah.
And Kobe had Lamar Odom, whereas Lamar Odom wasn't as impactful as Scotty.
Right.
And
but
Scotty's
same kind of a role.
Yeah, same kind of role. And watching Scotty's college highlights,
yeah,
bro,
they were sicker than I thought they were too. Looking back,
I've never seen this man.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. Well, not literally, but I've never seen
that
his college highlight.
Yeah.
Like, yo, this is crazy. And the fact that he grew. Different inches. Somebody said the only reason, I don't know if they said it in here or anywhere else, they said the only reason why Scotty grew went from 6'3" to 6'8" in that 1 year is because he finally was getting 3 meals a day, bro.
Wow.
That's how poor he was, man. Like he was malnourished.
You put Pippen anywhere in the NBA We talk about Mike, present, past, and future. Scotty's the same way. He is the ultimate point forward. He is the ultimate man defender. Mm-hmm. Mike's going to shut you down, but Mike got a lot of work on the offensive end. So Scotty's going to come in here and shut you down so Mike can rest at points and times. And that's prevalent to when they first met Tony Kukoc. Oh, he's going to come over here and take over somebody's spot? Okay, let's go over here and show him how Mike and Scotty do it. I hope they talk about that later on in the documentary as well, how Mike and Scotty just completely just went over there and just D'd these guys up. And I think Mike's attitude pouring into Scotty's athleticism already. Scotty saying he already had that mentality. He said he came in thinking he was going to be better than Jordan. Okay, because that was the mentality you took back then in those days. No one's better than me. I'm better than you at all costs until you prove to me otherwise. It just made the greatest dichotomy of a duo. And I just love that. Like I said, the only thing about this I did not like was the thoughts of that the front office runs a team and wins championships and not the players. And that is the most disrespectful slave owner mentality, asinine comment to make. Yes, you may have the money to put the team together to win, but if the team don't play, I've seen plenty of good teams that money put together not win a championship.
Agreed.
Okay? Not win a championship. Them last few years at the Lakers, when they were bringing over Karl Malone, all them old veterans, and Gary Payton, and all those guys coming over, they couldn't do it. They just couldn't do it.
Yeah. And I'm gonna chime in because the one aspect that when these documentaries air and the networks put their talking heads on or their working staff and they put these guys on, if it's a person of color, it could have to be a person of color, it could be white person, black person, whatever. The one thing they are there to do is, one, talk about the subject, two, not get fired. Right? So they're not going to bring up the certain elements that are blatantly obvious here, which is Jerry Krause, like you said, he had a very dominant society, biased view of how things were in his head versus what was really going on.
Yeah.
And I'll say all that to say this. Mike and Scotty were running the show. They were running the team, and Phil was a part of that, right? Mm-hmm. They were calling the shots.
Yeah.
Not you, and the man is passed, so I won't speak ill of the man.
Those three guys.
But I will speak of the situation. And in my estimation, it was a classic example of a white man being brought up in a certain time where Black people didn't have the right to run, own, or call shots. Okay. And he felt a certain type of way about that, especially when it came time when the credit was dished out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're not going to have...
Who tells... Could you imagine if LeBron James told them that or that he didn't want Stroestra? Right?
Oh, Eric
Spoelstra. How many coaches have LeBron gotten rid of, guys? Because that's the league. The players run the league. That's why the NBA is where it is in comparison to other leagues. And
they let the players do it.
Because the player, we're going to bring in this money. And they still, think about the money that these guys are getting. Then how much you think the owners are getting?
Yeah. and listen, I'm not an anti-ownership guy.
No,
you know what I mean?
No.
I do believe that there is a tier system. There's a structure.
Yes.
And the general manager, and they are they're, for all intents and purposes, they are your bosses that sign your checks, right? But you are a big cog in the machine, whereas you're bringing in the people that give them the money that they then give you. You know what I'm saying? So you got to give respect to the people that's bringing in the money, that's winning the championships, to do all that. Because look, let's say, all right, you got a problem with them. You don't want to do whatever, but you want to bring, you know what? I'm going to put this aside. I'm going to let them come back for that 98, 99 season, whatever, right? You still making money, bro.
Yeah.
Because now you cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Some people like
that. You know what I mean?
Some people like that.
Some people are. Because you can't tell me that the Bulls weren't the top in merchandise sales, the top in ticket sales, the top in national TV.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then that next year was the lockout, and they restructured the contracts with the TV rights and everything. So if your ego wasn't in the way, you would have made more money by letting them rock.
You don't get rid of champions. You don't get rid of the best player on any franchise. You just don't do it, especially someone of the caliber in which they were. Like you just said, they were the mark. They were the brass ring. They were the pinnacle of what everybody since then has done. And you got rid of that because of what reason? And again, this is where I do again go back and blame Jerry Reinsdorf. I need him. That's the blame. That is the blame. Nothing else to blame. They haven't talked about it. We're going to move on. We got 3, 4. We got other documentaries to come. And they're going to talk about that 91 championship Bulls year.
Yep.
When they finally got past Magic, they won that championship. It was the first time a kid from the south side of Chicago on 69th Street could go to 71st Street. I'm serious here. Okay? We're talking 2 blocks. There were 2 stores. Grandma wanted spice ham and boiled ham. If grandma wanted spice ham.
Not the spice ham.
If grandma wanted spice ham, I had to go to Jesse's. Okay? Jesse's was in the wrong damn neighborhood of the GDs. When they won that championship, it didn't matter what street we were from. BDs, GDs, Vice Lords, it didn't matter. Mike had that city, and them Bulls had them city together. It's like
and more importantly, your mama had the spice ham.
She had the spice ham. And like Mike said, and going into the documentary, he said, come on, man. He said, and when he won in 98, and he's sitting there at the press conference, right? And you said it when we started off. Let us win. Like, why could you rebuild means what? The draft for the NFL is in 2 days, right?
Yep.
Rebuild is drafting a player. Rebuilding a player is hoping you can win. I'm never giving up hope for a guarantee or the closest thing to a guarantee.
No, you mean you're never giving up guarantee for hope.
Yeah, you got what I'm
saying. Now you sound like Jesse Jackson. Keep hope alive.
I put down what you picked up, what I put down, and we put it back together. Okay? So, like the mega powers, all right? Let's
do it again. One more. Wait, we got to save it for the outro. No, we'll do it for the outro. Do it for the outro.
So in closing, okay, you don't do that. You don't tell the GOAT, in my opinion, because he ain't told you what he thought yet. Okay? Who's winning? Who's got a city on their back, who has the world on their back, who is clamoring for this. Like, we went to the vampire stage. We're in the comic book stage right now. There's stages in America, okay? It was a Jordan stage. It was a Jordan stage. And you let that happen. What's going on, man?
What the fuck vampires and comic books got to do with this?
I'm talking about eras and stages in America that took over. Apple iPhones had an era, right? Everybody had to have an iPhone at some point. Everybody at some point.
You talking about like hold on? You saying like before Marvel there was Twilight? Is that what you saying?
I'm saying at some point the world was taken over by Twilight. Yes.
Okay.
Harry Potter took over the world at some point. That was ridiculous, right? Jordan took over. Then the Bulls took over the world. Why stop it? Vampires had to run out for it to get off TV. Yeah. It was on everything, right? Everything had to have vampires in it.
It had to fall off.
It had to fall off.
You don't. They didn't kill. Stephanie Meyer didn't kill. That's the author of Twilight. She didn't have to kill it. She just let it rock until it didn't rock no more. J.K. Rowling let Harry Potter rock for like 10 books. And then she brought it back eventually. You know what I mean?
My point is, you don't get rid of Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls champ. So I'm looking forward to 3 and 4. It's going to bring in you some more content because you got Mom Duke's name and that Pistons and how I hated them Pistons. And I love the words of Mike Greenberg, who said on ESPN's Get Up, just to put things in perspective, young people, if Michael Jordan men were playing today and the things the Pistons did to them, the entire team would be suspended for the year.
And I love it because that's how I learned.
That's how you learn how to play ball.
That's how I learned how to play basketball.
And also young people who just say, oh, they're going to have more Jordan stuff. I bring it current again because he's an older guy and Mike Greenberg. Kevin Durant said it. Yeah, I'm not going to say it. We're bigger and faster and stronger, but the spacing on the floor to how he was, like you just said, champ, where he will find that mismatch. Somebody's thinking him got a mismatch somewhere. He's going to.
With hand checking. With hand checking, he was able to do that.
He's gonna drop 50 points, guys, because
with
the will
checking.
to do it. The will to do it. Champ, I can't wait for part 3 and for this documentary this Sunday. Come back and recap it again. Was all over the place today. A lot to get over because it's just a lot to get into this in our first show here. But the last dance will not be our last dance, champ.
No, man, no, we got to do it. And I just want to say this before we go into the next one, right? And I'm going to tell you what Isaiah Thomas said during All-Star break. This All-Star break that made me almost confirmed what I thought for a long time, but I didn't put it into words. Mm-hmm. He said when he had to go on that NBA top 50 stage, they see him in the background right there. Perfect timing.
Yeah.
When he went to the NBA 50 greatest players, Magic Johnson went up there with James Worthy and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Oh, they all went up there with somebody.
When Larry Bird went up there, he went up there with Robert Parrish and Kevin McHale.
Yeah.
When Michael Jordan went up there, he went up there with Scottie Pippen. Right?
Yeah.
When I went up there by myself.
Okay.
Mic drop. You can hate it all you want. And I'm 6'1", 180 pounds. Mic drop.
Well, Isaiah's always going to hate Mike. Like Mike allegedly always hates Isaiah. They're going to always go back and forth.
We'll say that for the next one.
Great point. Well, listen, with that being said, like the mega powers, we're going to get up out of here. Bring it in.
Yeah.
Listen, guys, we're going to get up out of here, y'all. We see y'all next week. Fox Sports Radio presents The Last Dance Review. We out of here, y'all. Peace.